Hi everyone, Stuart from the Norfolk Honey Company here, and welcome to another video. We are stood in a field of borage. It's, would you believe it, mid-June, and the weather really still hasn't warmed up. I'm hoping over the next week or so that the weather will change and we will get some warmer weather, and I hope that your beekeeping wherever you are hasn't suffered too badly this spring, because it's been pretty miserable for an awful lot of people here in the UK. So our borage crop is one that we help the farmer to pollinate. Unfortunately, we don't get paid for that because it does produce a huge amount of nectar and a really lovely honey. It's very, very light honey, sometimes almost clear in the jar, and has, I guess you'd call it, a very delicate flavour. Personally, I prefer a stronger tasting honey, but I know that there are an awful lot of people out there that prefer a very light, mild honey, and borage produces it by the bucket load. So we've got acres and acres and acres of borage to pollinate, not something that we can do on our own, and so we invite, organise, manage a few other bee farmers to come along and help pollinate this crop. And it produces, once the seed is set, a very small dark seed that when it's milled produces a fine grade oil that's used in a wide variety of industries. And I think pharmaceutical grade is probably the best way to describe it. Anyway, let's bring the camera in. What I wanted to do was to just show you the plants. This is, as they are, it's, I guess, about the right kind of growth for the time of year, despite all of the cold weather, despite the very wet conditions we've had. It's actually looking very healthy, and it's just starting to set the flower buds that are going to grow and develop. And what happens, it's actually very similar to oilseed rape in this respect. The plants are quite squat at the moment, and we'll bring the camera in and show you a couple close up. But as it starts to flower, so it produces a stem that comes up and will probably get to about 3 feet tall in some instances. So let's get the camera in, talk a little bit more about this, and really this is an introduction to a series of videos that we're going to produce over the summer months, if we ever get to summer, but certainly over the next 6 to 8 weeks, showing our bees on the borage crop and just showing how well they forage it and the kind of results that you can get when you're after a honey crop from it. So let's get the camera in, have a look at a couple of these plants, and look forward, hopefully, to a warm summer. A lot of people will know borage for the little flowers. It's sometimes called a star flower. You might find it in a Pimm's or a gin and tonic or something, but this is how it starts. So these plants are just starting to extend their main stem. You can see the flowers just starting to bud here, and there are one or two that are extending further. So there's one just behind it near my leg here, and that's a bit taller. And what happens is the flowers will gradually open. They don't open all in one go. But these plants, I kind of guess, are good and bad. Good in as much as we get an awful lot of nectar from them, and that produces a huge amount of honey for us. But bad in as much as they are covered with lots of tiny stiff hairs, and the bees really suffer with the actual foraging of these plants and these very fine needles on the leaves and stems cut through the wings of our honeybees. So a honeybee that's been foraging on borage for any period of time, you will notice, has got quite a lot of damage to its wings. So it can be quite an attritional plant for the bees to forage. That said, we're doing a huge job in getting it pollinated for the farmer, and in return we are getting a very good honey crop. These plants are probably 10 to 14 days away from flowering, and I would imagine that if we arrive here in a couple of weeks' time and set the bees out, then we'll get onto the crop just as it's starting to flower. And what tends to happen is you get a very rapid nectar flow, so the plants will start to flower, encourage pollinators onto them, and then just a few days after that there seems to be a flood of nectar that comes from the plants, and then it tapers off again. If we have our supers on the hives in good time, and we'll bulk super our hives, so we'll put maybe 3 or 4 supers on each hive. When we get that nectar flow, the bees will really start to store it away very rapidly. So I'm hoping that you'll join me again as we bring our bees over here. We'll be posting lots of videos to our Patreon page, but do look out for additional videos showing this borage crop and how our bees are performing as we go through the next 6 to 8 weeks' time. If you have any questions about this particular crop or summer honey generally, then do pop it beneath the video, but if not, we'll catch up next time. Thanks for watching.